Got a long passage of God's words to read. I emailed it to myself so that I would have access to it because, but look at this passage. A lot of words, and I want to try to read the whole thing because all of it is so important. At least it's important to me because, I struggle with lust, and so I found this passage and I was like, oh man, I haven't read this in a while, and it really puts things into perspective. It helps kind of understand what's going on, and it's something that I kind of knew before, but not real. I don't know. All right, I'm just gonna read it. God says, so let's discuss exactly what kind of thing sexual desire is. As long as you comprehend it correctly and have an accurate, correct, and objective comprehension and understanding of it, then you will unravel this problem and this misconception of uncleanliness and holiness. Isn't that so? Once people get married, they have their sexual desire satisfied and they give expression to their sexual and physical desires. And so they think, we married people are not holy, we're unclean, those young single men and women are holy. This is clearly a distorted understanding, which comes from not knowing exactly what sexual desire is. Now let's look at the very first human being. Did Adam have sexual desire? The mankind God has created is possessed of thought, language, sense, perception, as well as free will and emotional needs. What does emotional needs mean? It means that people need a partner to keep them company and to support them, to have a partner to talk to, someone to care for, look after, and cherish them. These are emotional needs. Another aspect is that people also have sexual desire. What is the basis for saying this? It is that after God created Adam, God said he needed a partner only for his life needs and emotional needs. But there was another need as well that God spoke of. What did God say? Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall join to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. The meaning of these words is very clear. We don't need to be so blunt about it. You understand these words, right? Can you see that God's kind of embarrassed to talk about this? I think that's so cute. Anyways, obviously when God created Adam, the ancestor of mankind, Adam had this need. Of course, this is an objective interpretation. More importantly, when God created him, he had this sensory organ and he had these physiological conditions and characteristics. This was the actual situation of Adam, the first ancestor of mankind created by God, who is the first human being of the flesh. He was possessed of language, he could hear, he could see, he could taste, he had sensory organs, emotional needs, sexual desire, physiological needs, and of course, he had free will, as we said just now. These things together constitute a human being created by God. Is this not the actual situation? This is the physiological structure of men. What about women? God created a physiological structure for women different to that for men, and of course created the same sexual desire as that of men. What is the basis for saying this? In Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, God said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception, and sorrow you shall bring forth children. Where did the children mentioned in this bring forth children come from? Say there is a woman who doesn't possess this kind of physiological need, or more precisely, she does not possess the needs of female sexual desire. Would she be able to conceive? No, and this is very clear. So now looking at these two lines from God, the men and women God created have different physiological structures, yet they both share the common physiological characteristics of sexual desire. This is confirmed by these deeds done by God and the message between the lines of the instructions given to human beings. The human beings created by God possess physiological structures and also possess the needs of their physiological structures. So how should we regard this matter now? This thing called sexual desire is a part of the flesh, like a human organ. For example, you eat breakfast at 6 in the morning, and by midday all that food has more or less been digested and your stomach is empty. The stomach transmits this information to the brain, and the brain tells you your stomach is empty, time to eat. What is this feeling in the stomach? It feels a little empty and uncomfortable, and you want to eat something. And how does this feeling of wanting to eat something come about? It's the result of the operation and metabolism of your entire nervous system and your organs. It's that simple. Sexual desire has the same nature as any other bodily organ. Every organ is associated with the nervous system, which sends commands to your various organs. For example, your nose smells odors, and when it smells a foul odor, this odor enters your nervous system, and the nervous system tells your brain, this odor is foul, it's not a nice smell. It passes this information on to you, and then you immediately cover your nose or wave your hand before your nose. There's this series of movements. You see, this series of movements and actions and this kind of feeling and awareness are all commanded by certain organs and the nervous system in your body. For example, you hear an incredibly loud, ear-piercing sound, and after your ears have received this information, you feel upset or repulsed and you cover your ears. Actually, all that has been received by your ears is a sound, a piece of information, but the brain distinguishes whether this sound is beneficial to you or not. It has no major effect on you, you just hear it and discern it, and then it goes without you paying it much notice. If it has a negative effect on your heart or body, your brain will distinguish this and will then tell you to cover your ears or open your mouth wide. A series of actions and thoughts such as these will take place. Human sexual desire is just the same, with corresponding organs that have different judgments and interpretations under the control of corresponding nerves. Human sexual desire is just a simple thing as this. This thing is at the same level and equivalent to any other organ in the human body, but it has its own particularity, and that's why people always have various different ideas, views, or thoughts about it. So by fellowshipping in this way, shouldn't you now have the correct understanding? Human sexual desire is nothing mysterious. It was created by God, and it has existed ever since humans came to be. Because it was ordained by God and created by God, it cannot become a negative thing or an unclean thing just because people have all manner of misunderstandings and notions about it. It's just the same as any other human sensory organ. It exists within the human body, and if it is within a proper marriage arranged and ordained by God, then it is a reasonable thing. If, however, people indulge in it or misuse it, then it becomes a negative thing. Of course, sexual desire itself is not negative, but the people who use it or those thoughts are negative. For example, love triangles, promiscuity, incest, as well as rape and sexual assault, and so on. These things that are related to sexual desire are negative things and have nothing to do with the original sexual desire of human flesh. Sexual desire of the flesh is the same as a physical organ. It was created by God. However, because of the wickedness and corruption of mankind, all manner of wicked things related to sexual desire occur, and then it has nothing to do with proper and normal sexual desire. These are matters of two different natures. Isn't that so? Love triangles, extramarital affairs, as well as incest and sexual assault. These are all wicked things related to sexual desire that occur amongst corrupt mankind. These things have nothing to do with proper sexual desire in marriage. They are unclean and proper, and they are not positive things. Do you see this clearly now? Amen. So God outlines the negative use of sexual desire, and when I evaluate myself and reflect on myself, I'm like, well, I don't do any of that. So I don't cheat on my partner because I don't have a partner. I don't commit fornication. I'm not in a love triangle. I don't assault anyone or hurt anyone. I just look at porn. That's it. So it's I don't see much of a problem with my lust having expression, like my sexual desire having expression. I don't really see a problem with it. After reading that passage, I don't see a problem with it. But of course, in the future, God might say, oh, and pornography is an inappropriate outlet for sexual desire. And then I'll be like, okay, I see that it's wrong now, but since God hasn't said it, I'm just okay, I guess it's not wrong. Cause my conscience, is shaped by God's words. My conscience isn't really I don't just naturally have a conscience because I'm demonic. I know that's corny and embarrassing and kind of scary and creepy, and but it is what it is. I'm reincarnated from a demon according to God's words because I'm schizophrenic, and that's what that means. Having schizophrenia, it means reincarnated from a demon, basically. So I have a deviant sexual nature due to that fact, but it's expressed, in a way that nobody's getting hurt emotionally, physically, mentally, Nobody's being hurt. I keep it to myself in private. And so it's really not that bad, you know, because I don't involve other people in it, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not that bad. At least, you know, and because I'm reincarnated from a demon, like I wasn't just born with a conscience. I'm basically like a psychopath because like I didn't have a conscience until I started reading God's words. And then like, well, actually when I started reading the Bible started to give me a conscience, and then God's words reinforced and further like instilled that conscience into my heart and my mind. So God gave me a conscience, but like I was born a psychopath without a conscience basically. But God's words gave me a conscience, you know? So my conscience is shaped by God's words. So really the cure for psychopathy is God's words. Because God's words will give you a conscience, because God will, you know, God's words have authority and they capture your heart and they make you realize right and wrong. They make you realize, okay, God's standard is good. And you see that God's standard is good and you want to abide by God's standard. So then you develop a conscience very naturally, you know? So I'm very thankful to have a conscience because I feel a lot more like confident as a human being to have a conscience than I did before. Like before, when I didn't have a conscience, I was very depressed and I was very angry and I was very violent. And now that I have a conscience, like I'm very calm, I'm very peaceful, I'm very happy, you know, it's just like, it's like two different worlds, you know? And so I absolutely love being human. And yeah, I think being human is the best opportunity to get to know God and obey God, and very thankful. And so you guys should be thankful to be human. I know some of you are probably depressed sometimes, but don't be, because you have the greatest opportunity to get to know God and to obey God of any creature that exists, you know? There's no creature that has the opportunity to know God and obey God like the opportunity we have is the best opportunity, you know what I mean? Like, we have the best opportunity, so be thankful. And I guess that's it. So may God's will be done in all of your lives. God bless and goodbye.